Welcome to Jazz Piano Skills. I'm Dr. Bob Lawrence. It's time to discover, learn, and play jazz piano. Last week, we tackled the key of B major, focusing on harmonic development. This week, we continue our exploration of the key of B major, but do so melodically. So today, you are going to discover a key of B major melodic workout. And you're going to learn how to think within the key of B major melodically. And you're going to play the modes of the key of B major using ascending and descending scale and arpeggio motion, launching from various entry points, the root, the third, the fifth, the seventh. And you're going to play melodic lines over the 2-5-1 progression in the key of B major, using various rhythms common to jazz, focusing primarily on 16th note pairs. So as I always like to say, regardless of where you are in your jazz journey, a beginner, an intermediate player, an advanced player, or even if you consider yourself a seasoned and experienced professional, you're going to find this Jazz Piano Skills podcast lesson exploring a key of B major melodic workout to be very beneficial. But before we jump in, I want to, as I do at the beginning of every Jazz Piano Skills podcast episode, I want to welcome all new listeners. And if you are indeed new to Jazz Piano Skills, I want to welcome you and personally invite you to become a Jazz Piano Skills member. All you have to do to become a member, visit JazzPianoSkills.com. And once you arrive at the homepage, you can begin to explore the abundance of jazz educational resources, the materials and services that are available for you to use to help you significantly improve your jazz piano skills. For example, as a Jazz Piano Skills member, you have access to all of the educational podcast packets, the illustrations, the lead sheets, the play-alongs that I develop and produce and make available for every weekly podcast episode. Now, these are invaluable educational tools that you certainly want to have in your hands as you listen to the podcast episode. You certainly want to have sitting on your piano as you're practicing as well. You also, as a Jazz Piano Skills member, have access to the sequential jazz piano curriculum, which is loaded with comprehensive courses. Now, this is an online curriculum that uses a self-paced format. There are educational talks, interactive media. There are video demonstrations in all 12 keys of the jazz piano skills being taught. There are play-alongs, and there are much more. So check out the sequential jazz piano curriculum. You also, as a Jazz Piano Skills member, have I like to say a reserved seat to the online weekly masterclasses, which are in essence a 1-hour online lesson with me each and every week. You also, as a Jazz Piano Skills member, have access to the online interactive fake book. This gives you access to jazz standards from the Great American Songbook. You can enjoy chord changes lead sheets. There are harmonic function lead sheets, play-along files, historical insights, inspirational recordings, chord scale relationships, and much more. It's an ever-growing collection of tunes that you should absolutely discover, learn, and play. You also, as a Jazz Piano Skills member, have access to the online private Jazz Piano Skills community, which hosts a variety of engaging forums. There are podcast-specific forums, course-specific forums, and of course, there are general jazz piano forums for you to enjoy as well. And of course, since you have access to all these forums, you will be able to contribute to them as well, which I encourage you to do, right? Share, engage, and grow. That is the whole purpose of the Jazz Piano Skills community. And last but certainly not least, as a Jazz Piano Skills member, you have unlimited private, personal, and professional educational support provided by me whenever and as often as you need it. So take a moment, visit JazzPianoSkills.com to learn more about all of the wonderful educational opportunities that await you and how to activate your membership. Now, There are several membership plans to choose from, and I am quite certain there is one that is perfect for you. But nevertheless, if you get there and if you have some questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. Please let me know. I'm always happy to spend time with you, answer any questions that you may have, and to help you in any way that I can. Okay, let's discover, learn, and play jazz piano. Let's get after this key of B major melodic workout. In January, we tackled the key of C major, right? Started out very first month of the year, we tackled C major harmonically. And then we followed that harmonic workout in the key of C major with a melodic workout. Then in February, we jumped into the key of F major. We looked at it harmonically, and then we followed it up with a melodic workout as well. When we got to March, we explored the key of B flat major harmonically, and then we followed that with the key of B flat major melodic workout. April, we followed the same format, right? We embraced the key of E flat major harmonically, followed it up with a key of E flat major melodic workout. Of course, in May, we continued our workouts with the key of A flat major harmonically, followed by the key of A flat major melodically. June, we spent diving into the key of D flat major harmonically and melodically. And then last month in July, we tackled the ever fearful key of G flat major in both ways, right? Harmonically and melodically. So this month, the month of August, we continue marching forward with our workouts with the key of B major. And last week, we did a key of B major harmonic workout, which means today, with much excitement, of course, we proceed with our key of B major melodic workout. Now, I have mentioned this on several occasions, that even though we devote a lot of time and energy to these harmonic and melodic workouts, which we should absolutely be doing, the reality is that harmony and melody without rhythm remain simply stationary or static sounds. The bottom line is this: melody and harmony need rhythm. Without rhythm, melody and harmony are simply not very musical. And this is precisely why every harmonic and melodic workout includes various rhythmic skills, various rhythmic patterns for you to study and for you to practice. Again, the idea is that rhythm must be applied to harmony and melody if you truly want to develop professional jazz piano skills. Now, those of you who have been faithfully doing the various harmonic and melodic workouts since the start of the new year know that we started on a mission with the key of C major, and we are making our way around the circle of fifths, counterclockwise, of course, with the goal of, by the end of the year, having successfully spent quality time with all 12 keys. Additionally, as we move around the circle of fifths throughout the year, we will gradually increase the intensity and complexity of our rhythmic application to both harmony and melody. Moving through and experiencing all 12 keys is absolutely essential. I tell students all the time, if you want to become more comfortable with the key of C, then practice in the key of F. And if you want to get more comfortable with the key of F, practice in the key of B flat. And if you want to get more comfortable with the key of B flat, practice in the key of E flat, and so on. My point is that we get better in all keys when we strategically and continually move through all keys. Now, there is some misguided thinking out there with regards to playing in all 12 keys that many jazz students have expressed to me over the past 30 years and continue to express to me, that goes something like this: I don't need to practice in all 12 keys because I don't see many tunes, really. I got to be honest with you. I don't see many tunes written in the key of G flat or B or E. So why do I need to spend time practicing in those keys when in reality I will more likely be playing in keys like C and F and B flat? I'll never play in those keys. Now, I know none of y'all have ever had any of those thoughts, of course, right? So at the risk of preaching to the choir here, I just want to say that thinking is wrong. It's just so off base. Now, why this thinking is so skewed, it's whacked, because with a casual glance at practically any jazz standard, one notices right away the tunes weave in and out of various key centers. For example, just last month, we studied the great jazz standard by Duke Ellington, Satin Doll. Now, of course, we did it in the key of G flat major. And what did we discover? We discovered that by the end of the first 8 measures, we were dipping our toes into 8 different key centers, primarily the keys of G flat, E flat, D flat, C. And with the turnaround added at the end of the first 8 measures, we had to navigate through 4 additional keys, B, B flat, A, and A flat. Now, I think this is kind of funny, right? Because everybody thinks of Satin Doll as kind of a cute little song that every jazz teacher gives to every beginning jazz student. And what's ironic about that is that this is not a simple tune because it moves through so many different key centers. In fact, it's very challenging if you want to actually play it correctly. So I could give example after example of these shifting key centers in standards. So the point is just simply this. We must learn how to play in all 12 keys. We must become comfortable with the various shapes and sounds in all 12 keys. We must have a command of the shapes and sounds in all 12 keys, harmonically and melodically. Because when we play standards, when we play jazz literature, you're going to be weaving in and out of all 12 keys at some point. You just cannot avoid it. Now, with all that being said, do not make the mistake of thinking that one key must be mastered before moving on to the next key. This is also a common misconception which produces a very, very slow practice approach that produces minimal results and actually impedes your musical growth. I've stated this before as well, that based on years of teaching experience, the rhythmic dimension of music is actually the main stumbling block for most students. And when it comes to playing rhythms, most students find themselves guessing at how rhythms are supposed to be played. And the truth is that if you are guessing at rhythm, your internal sense of time is going to be way off. And if your internal time is off, your playing is off. Right? Your playing is just simply not good. This is why you have to make a personal commitment to practicing rhythm, which is practicing time. You have to practice rhythm, time, harmonically, as we do in our harmonic workouts. And you have to practice rhythm, time, melodically, as we do in our melodic workouts. And ironically, rhythm, time, is the most important aspect of music and is discussed and practiced the least. And this is precisely why most people have difficulty becoming an accomplished jazz musician. I cannot begin to tell you how many students that I have taught over the years who come to me with solid melodic and harmonic technique. They have an exceptional understanding of voicings and chord scale relationships, improvisational approaches, but yet they struggle to play jazz. Why? And the answer is rhythm. They are rhythmically deficient, so their time is all over the map. So my goal with these strategic harmonic and melodic workouts is to help you develop sufficient harmonic and melodic jazz piano skills and to make sure that you gain a proficient understanding of rhythm and as a result, develop a solid internal sense of time. Last week with our key of B harmonic workout, I introduced rhythms focusing primarily on 16th note pairs. Today, we're going to follow that same game plan, the application of rhythmic ideas melodically, focusing primarily on the 16th note pairs. But as always, I want to stress the importance of doing the entire key of B major melodic workout and not just simply jump to the last lead sheet in your podcast packet, Skill 25, to attack the melodic rhythms. No, why? Why do I voice this warning? Because you have to have a functional command of your scales, your arpeggios, right, in the key of B major before you can begin applying rhythm to them. As I like to say, you have to bake a cake before you can decorate the cake. So remain disciplined and spend time with skills 1 through 24 before tackling skill 25. So you will find in your lead sheet packet, podcast packet, as you did with our last 4 melodic workouts, the key of C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, all 24 skills laid out for you. So let's do just a quick review. Skills 1 through 4. Explore the modes ascending from root position, first, second, and third inversion. Skills 5 through 8. Modes descending, again in root, first, second, and third inversion. Skills 9 through 12. We turn our attention to the arpeggios ascending, root position, plus the first, second, and third inversions. And skills 13 through 16, arpeggios again, but descending this time from root position, first, second, and third inversions. Now, skill 17, 2-5-1 progression using ascending scale motion from root, third, fifth, and seventh entry points, starting on the 2 chord. Skill 18, 2-5-1 progression descending using scale motion, again with entry points of the root, third, fifth, and seventh from the 2 chord. Skill 19, we stick with the 2-5-1 progression, but now apply ascending arpeggio motion from the root, the third, the fifth, and the seventh. We also, in skill 20, explore the 2-5-1 progression using descending arpeggio motion, and again with our entry points of the root, third, fifth, and seventh from the 2 chord. Skill 21 expands our harmonic motion, our harmonic progression, to now include the 3 and the 6 chord. So we have our 3-6-2-5-1 progression using ascending scale motion with entry points from the root, third, fifth, and seventh from the 2 chord. Skill 22, 3-6-2-5-1 progression using descending scale motion with our entry points always being the root, third, fifth, and seventh, launching from the 2 chord. From the 3 chord, I should say. Sorry, we're all launching from the 3 chord on these 3-6-2-5-1 progressions. And then skill 23, we stick with the 3-6-2-5-1, ascending arpeggio motion, entry points, root, third, fifth, and seventh from the 3 chord. And then skill 24, 3-6-2-5-1, descending arpeggio motion, entry points, root, third, fifth, and seventh, launching from the 3 chord. Okay? That is a lot. That is a lot of information to process conceptually. That is a lot of information to process, of course, physically. But after you have thoroughly completed your workout, skills 1 through 24, then you can turn your attention to playing skill 25, which challenges you with 12 melodic lines using various rhythmic patterns with a focus being placed on 16th note pairs. Okay, so the educational agenda for today is as follows. Number 1, we are going to explore the key of B major melodically. And number 2, we are going to play 12 melodic ideas using ascending and descending scale and arpeggio motion. Number 3, all melodic ideas will be applied to our 2-5-1 progression today in the key of B major. In other words, C sharp minor 7 going to F sharp dominant 7 going to B major 7. Number 4, all melodic lines will be played using a relaxed bossa groove of 85. In fact, it's the same groove that we used last week with our key of B major harmonic workout. And number 5, all melodies. I will be playing all melodies using a single note right hand melodic treatment with supported with shells, left hand shells, shells in my left hand. Okay. So before we go any further, if you're a JazzPianoSkills member, I want you just to take a few minutes right now, as always, to download and print your podcast packets, the illustrations, and the lead sheets. Now, you have access, again, as a member, you have access to all of these podcast packets, and you should absolutely be using them when listening to this podcast episode. And, of course, you should be using them when practicing. So if you are listening to this podcast on any of the popular podcast directories, such as Apple or Google, Amazon, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, etc., then be sure to go to JazzPianoSkillsPodcast.com to download your podcast packets. And you will find the download links in the show notes. And one final but extremely important note that I mention every week. If you are listening right now, and if you are thinking that the key of B major melodic workout that with the various skills that we are about to discover, learn, and play, if you are thinking that this content is over your head, then I would say to you, relax, sit back, and continue to listen. Just continue to grow your jazz piano skills intellectually by listening to this podcast episode. Keep in mind now, all skills, right? Think about this. All skills are over our heads when first introduced, and that is precisely why the first step we always need to take, the very first step that we need to take to improve our musicianship, is to simply sit back and listen. So do not shy away from these conversations that may be discussing foreign topics or using unfamiliar terms, right? Stepping outside of our musical comfort zone is what actually spawns our musical growth. Now, as you all have heard me say a million times, all musical growth begins upstairs, mentally, conceptually, before it can come out downstairs, physically, in your hands. So sit back, relax, and listen to this podcast lesson now to discover and learn. The play will come in time. It always does. I guarantee it. Okay, so now that you have Skill 25 from your lead sheets packet in front of you, I want to walk us through all 12 melodic lines. And I'm going to play each line, but I'm going to point out some characteristics of each of the lines as well. So let's start with letter A. So you'll notice that all 12 lines are labeled A through L. So letter A, right away, right? What do we see? We have our 8th to 16th note pattern that we were introduced to in our harmonic workout last week. And we got a, little 8th note there on the back side of count 2 in measure 1. We use that same rhythmic motif in measure 2, right? The 8th to 16th note pair, followed by a single 8th note on the end of 2. But then look at measure 3. We have some triplets going on, descending triplets, all the way through measure 3 and measure 4. But look at count 2 in measure 4. That rhythm changes. So the challenge here, you're playing these descending triplets, but then that line ends with the 8th to 16th note combination. So it's easy to actually end up playing that as a triplet, which it is not. Okay, so let's bring the ensemble in. Let's take a listen to this first. I encourage you to clap, tap, right? You do not have to actually be playing these right now just as you're listening, but you certainly can tap these rhythms as I'm playing them, kind of preparing yourself for when you go to the piano to play them, you've already done some preliminary work here. So let's bring the ensemble in. Let's take a listen and see what we think. Here we go. Check it out. Nice. I mentioned it last week. The challenge, this 8th note followed by 2 16th note, this rhythmic pattern, this rhythmic idea is a challenge because a lot of times if we're not careful, we end up playing it like a triplet, and it's not. There's a very big difference between the triplet and the single 8th connected to 2 16th notes. So throughout these rhythms, I'm going to try to create patterns and lines that help you develop the difference, being able to successfully play the difference between these two rhythmic ideas. Okay? So now let's take a look at letter B. Letter B, we start off with a rhythm that we've had in the past as well, the 8th, quarter, 8th combination. We have some 8th notes then with tie between counts 2 and between counts 3 and 4, and then we have an 8th, quarter, 8th combination again in measure 2. Then in measure 3 we have our 8th, 2 16th note pattern again that's showing up. So we have some tied notes to deal with in this line, but we have that really familiar 8th, quarter, 8th pattern to deal with as well. So let's bring the ensemble in. Let's check it out. Let's see what we think. Here we go. Love it. Very nice. Very nice. So now let's take a look at letter C. Letter C starts with a ascending line of triplets, right? Followed by, look at measure 2. Now we have our 16th notes, our 16th note pair followed by an 8th note. So now that rhythmic pattern is flipped, right? The 16th notes are on the front side as opposed to being on the back side. So we have a descending line in measure 3 and 4 that is utilizing this 16th note pair followed by an 8th note, right? With a quarter rest in between. And then we have an 8th rest in measure 3. We have an 8th rest on count 2, which places our very last note on the back side of count 2. So some little tricky rhythmic ideas to deal with here in letter C. So let's bring the ensemble in And let's take a listen to letter C and see what we think. Here we go. Check it out. Gaining a command of these 16th note pairs where they fall on the back side of an eighth note or they are placed on the front side of an eighth note. Getting comfortable with this rhythmic idea and being able to move from one to the other, right? Moving from with the eighth note followed by two 16th notes or two 16th notes followed by an eighth note. Both of these rhythmic ideas are very important to get a command of and to become comfortable with. And hopefully these 12 melodic lines will help you do just that. So now let's take a look at letter D. Right away you can see, wow, measure 1, everything's happening on the upbeat, on the offbeat, or the backside of count 1, count 2, count 3, and count 4. Followed by an ascending melodic idea utilizing the 8th to 16th note pair pattern ascending, and then we have a descending line happening in measure 3 that flips that pattern, right, where the 16th note pairs now are on the front side of the 8th note. So you got them measure 2 and measure 3. You're just going from one melodic idea or rhythmic idea and flipping it in measure 3 as well. So all right, so this is a little tricky. So let's bring in the ensemble and let's take a listen. Here we go. Well, we're only a third of the way through, and you can already see that, these rhythmic ideas are not easy, right? They're not easy. So be patient. This is why the tempo, we're playing it at a comfy tempo today, as we did last week with the harmonic, with our harmonic workout, because these rhythms are important to be able to start incorporating 16th notes into our lines harmonically and melodically, and to be able to do so with mixing it with our triplets, our eighth note triplets, our quarter note triplets, and our various patterns like the eighth quarter eighth or the dotted quarter eighth, which is all of these patterns are within these lines here today. So this is big time stuff that we have to get a command of. So be patient. Be patient. And again, I can't encourage you enough to spend some time clapping through these rhythms or tapping through these rhythms on your desk or kitchen table, right? Before you play them. Or when you do go to play them, use a single note, right? You can play them just rhythmically first using a single note, then apply the melodic line to the line. Okay, so all right, so let's march on. Let's take a look at letter E. We have our dotted quarter eighth pattern that we have to deal with. We have some tied notes to deal with. So let's bring the ensemble in and let's just take a listen and see what we have to deal with here. So check it out. Here we go. Some other things to pay attention to as we play through these rhythms. When you analyze these and look at these rhythmic lines and these melodic lines, pay attention to when scale motion is being used or when arpeggio motion is being used. What note is the musical phrase being resolved on? Are there melodic ideas that are being repeated from one measure to the next measure to the next measure, as we just did in letter E, right? Same kind of melodic idea over the 2 chord, over the 5 chord, over the 1 chord. So those are the types of things that will help you develop your jazz vocabulary, is being aware of the motion, the ascending, descending motion. When does it occur? Are we using scale motion, arpeggio motion? What notes are we resolving on? These type of characteristics of a jazz line is what will help you develop your jazz lines. So understanding these dimensions, how a line is constructed, if you're looking at whether you're looking at these lines or a transcription, same process applies, right? Pay attention to the nitty-gritty, the underneath the hood kind of stuff, that the architectural structure of the line. Okay, it goes way beyond. I guess what I'm saying is it goes way beyond just knowing the notes. There's a lot more to it than just the notes. All right, so let's look at letter F. And right away, wow, here comes some quarter note triplets, not only in count 1, but measure 1, measure 2, and measure 3. We have quarter note triplets to deal with, followed by 16th note pairs, right? Measure 1, 16th note pair, 8th note. Measure 2, another 16th note pair, followed by 8th note. Wow, this should be fun. So let's bring the ensemble in. Let's take a listen. Here we go. love it. All right. Okay, buckle up your seatbelt because take a look at letter G. All right? We don't come in on count 1 and 2 in measure 1. We don't come in on counts 1 and 2 in measure 2. We don't come in or play anything on counts 1 and 2 in measure 3. Right? You've heard me say this before. The hardest thing for a jazz piano player to do is to play nothing. Right? And that's what we have to do. We have to play nothing for counts 1 and 2 and come in on counts 3 and 4. And we follow this same process in measure 1 and measure 2 and in measure 3. So we have our 8th, 2/16th note pairs in measure 1. We have our 8th and 16th note pairs in measure 2. And then in measure 3, all of a sudden that switches, we have ascending triplets to deal with. So you should be able to hear a difference between these rhythmic motifs, right? Between the 8th, 2/16th note pair and the 8th note triplet. So let's bring the ensemble in and let's check out letter G. Here we go. Wow, right? Letter G will test your ability to track time when you're playing nothing and to be able to come in at the appropriate time after playing nothing. So letter G can be a little tricky. Have fun with it, okay? So take a look at letter H. All right, so we have 8th note triplet there in measure 1, followed by 2 back-to-back quarter note triplets. And then we have our classic 8th, 2/16th note pair again to deal with in measure 3. All right, so let's bring the ensemble in and let's check out letter H. Here we go. Nice. Very nice. Now, letter I, right? Letter I is interesting because we are playing a rhythmic idea that is stationary, right? Look at measure 1. It's stationary. In other words, it's all being executed on a single note for counts 1 and 2. And we do the same thing in measure 2. The same rhythmic idea is just being executed on one single note for counts 1 and 2. But now look at measure 3. We have 16th note pairs, not followed by an 8th note, but followed by an 8th rest on counts 1, 2, and 3, which may be a little tricky at first. So let's bring the ensemble in and let's take a listen and let's check out what we think about these rhythmic ideas being executed on a single note before moving off of that note in measure 1 and 2, followed by the 16th note pairs, followed by an 8th rest. Wow, very fun. So let's bring the ensemble in. Let's check it out. Here we go. Neat, right? I like it. I think it sounds fantastic. So, and I guess the bottom line is don't be afraid when you're developing and working on your own jazz vocabulary. Do not be afraid to take a rhythmic idea and to play that rhythmic idea on a single note. We always talk about ascending and descending motion. I think we don't talk enough about just static motion or static movement. We're just staying put, stationary, I guess is a great word to use for that. Stationary ideas, right? So, okay, let's look at letter J. Nothing tricky, really, in measures 1 and 2. Classic 8th note lines, typical of jazz. But now look at measures 3 and 4. We have our 8th followed by 2 16th note pairs, followed by 2 16th notes, a 16th note pair, followed by the 8th note, right? So we have these two rhythmic ideas that we have been toying with all day throughout this episode. Now we have both of those rhythmic ideas back to back, right? The 8th followed by 2 16ths, connected to the 2 16ths followed by an 8th in measures 3 and measures 4. In measure 4. So let's bring the ensemble in. Let's take a listen to letter J. Here we go. Onward to letter K. We only have 2 left. Onward to letter K. Well, we've dealt with this before, right? 8th notes on the back side of count 1, count 2, count 3, and count 4 in measure 1. And then we have our 8th 2 16th note pair line in measure 2. And then the same idea repeated in measure 3. So we should be pretty comfortable with this rhythmic this little rhythmic motif by now, right? So let's bring the ensemble in and let's listen to letter K. Here we go. Check it out. Right, we are down to our final melodic line today, letter L. And look at measure 1, ascending triplets, right, on counts 1, 2, 3, and 4. Check out measure 2, descending line using our 8th 2/16th note motif all the way down. Check out measure 3. We flip it. We have our 2/16th note pair followed by 8th note, ascending line all the way up. And letter L is going to test your ability to move in and out of these 8th note triplets into a 8th 2/16th note pair rhythmic idea, into a 2/16th note pair followed by 8th note rhythmic idea. Right? So you're going to be able to test your ability to how well you can articulate these various rhythmic motifs and make them sound correct and not have them sound all exactly the same, which they should not be. Okay? So let's bring the ensemble in. Let's take a listen to letter L and let's check it out and see what we think. Here we go. Wow. Holy moly, right? Have we covered a lot again today in getting through all 12 of these melodic lines. Now, I didn't mention this at the beginning. I should have, but I know you probably picked up on it pretty quick. I played each of these melodic lines 4 times through, right? I always put a 2-5-1 at the beginning, just playing harmonic movement at the beginning, and then again harmonic movement at the end the last time through, right? But between the bookends, I played each of these melodic lines 4 times, giving you an opportunity to digest them orally, and then also giving you a nice opportunity to play along with me and repeat each melodic line several times, right? So I cannot stress enough. I just cannot stress enough how important it is that you spend time becoming familiar with these diatonic melodic shapes. Again, all these lines today were 100% diatonic motion, right? Scales and arpeggios, all diatonic to the key of B major. And so having a command of these ascending and descending scale motion within the framework of a key, the modes, is a huge step, right, towards developing mature improvisation skills. And having a command of ascending and descending arpeggio motion outlining the harmonic shapes of a key is equally important. And then being able to apply the ascending and descending scale and arpeggio shapes of a key to common chord progressions within the key, such as the 2-5-1 progression, it's a big-time jazz piano skill that must be strategically studied and practiced if you are serious about becoming an accomplished jazz pianist. And that's exactly what we did today. It's exactly why we took the approach that we took today, to actually gain a command of scale motion, arpeggio motion, rhythmically within the context of a 2-5-1 progression. So if you combine today's workout, our key of B major melodic workout, with last week's key of B major harmonic workout, you have an incredible combination that will have you well on your way to mastering the key of B major, right? And not only that, it will continue to solidify a practice blueprint for you that can be replicated in other keys, all right? Which is exactly what we've been doing throughout this entire year, okay? Now, I said it every week. I say it every week, and I want to stress it again today that, if you hang in there with me this year, and can you believe it? We're almost to the end of the year. But if you hang in there with me this year, you will experience a ton of jazz piano growth, and you will love where you are musically a year from now. I absolutely guarantee it. Not a year from now, but at the end of the year is what I'm trying to say, right? You will love where you are musically. Okay, one final note. I mention this every week as well. Be patient. Right? Developing mature professional jazz piano skills takes time. Begin structuring your practicing after the playing demonstrations that I modeled for you today in this podcast episode. And I promise you, you will begin to see and you will begin to feel and hear your musical progress. All right? All right. Well, I hope you have found this Jazz Piano Skills podcast lesson exploring a key of B major melodic workout to be insightful. And of course, I hope you have found it to be very beneficial. And don't forget, if you are a Jazz Piano Skills member, I will see you online Thursday evening at the Jazz Piano Skills Masterclass. That's 8 p.m. Central Time to discuss this podcast episode lesson, exploring our key of B major melodic workout in greater detail, and of course, to answer any questions that you may have about the study of jazz in general. Likewise, I want you to be sure to check out the educational podcast packets, the illustrations, the lead sheets, the play-alongs. I want you to use them, not only for this podcast lesson, but for every podcast lesson. And also check out the Jazz Piano Skills curriculum, the courses, to maximize your musical growth. And make sure that you are an active participant in the Jazz Piano Skills community. Get out there, get involved, contribute to the various forums, and of course, make some new jazz piano friends. Always a great thing to do. Now, you can always reach me by phone, 972-380-8050. My extension is 211 here at the Dallas School of Music. Or you can reach me by email, Dr. Lawrence, drlawrence, @jazzpianoskills.com. Or you can use the nifty little SpeakPipe widget that is found throughout the Jazz Piano Skills website. Well, there is my cue. That's it for now. And until next week, enjoy your key of B major melodic workout. And most of all, have fun as you discover, learn, and play jazz piano.